And another piece of good advice that my mom gave me that just sparked your conversation sparked it for me, your words. She used to say to me, nothing is written in stone.
Mm, mm.
Absolutely nothing. So if you begin something and it doesn't work, you can change it. And she also said regarding change, she said, if you like what's going on in your life right now, cherish that because it will change.
Yes.
And if you don't like what's going on in your life right now, that's okay because it'll change too. Hang on, it'll
Yeah.
change too. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I
Very
think
wise lady. She's
yeah.
91 and a half and just this redheaded
Oh,
Oh, that's so
sapphire.
fun.
Oh, yeah, she's awesome. Yeah. Hello, Mama, when you listen to this.
saying all kinds of great
Just
things about you.
is your mom like as positive a person as you are?
Welcome to Her Unshakable Confidence with dynamic mother-daughter duo Simone and Olivia Knego, where they discuss the secrets of transformation and how to build bold confidence and unwavering resilience. From intimate conversations with inspiring guests to sharing their personal journeys of triumph and challenge, Simone and Olivia create a supportive space where every woman is encouraged to rise above her fears and love the woman in the mirror. Tune into Her Unshakable Confidence and join this special journey of connection and growth. It's like catching up with old friends who inspire you to be bravely and uniquely you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Her Unshakable Confidence. I'm Simone Knego.
And I'm Olivia Knego.
Did you forget who you were?
Well, I honestly was expecting the old intro still. I don't know why.
I'm really focused on doing the intro correctly.
Well, and I think I was thinking about how I was so focused about you doing the intro correctly that I forgot I actually had to speak in the intro.
See, this is how it goes with us, right?
Yeah.
Today, we have a very special guest. Leigh Leigh Kossman is a motivational speaker. She is an intuitive life transitions coach and spiritual guide for those who are ready to create their next great chapter. Lili brings over 3 decades of leadership and teaching experience in church, academic, and private sectors. Her interests are faith, family, and friends. She's a singer and voice teacher, and Lili loves throwing parties at home. I think that is like such a great line to end that with. Like, I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, ladies. I am thrilled to be here.
So you have a really interesting background. So I was on your website checking stuff out, and obviously I know you from our work with Brand Builders Group. So it's been so fun. Yeah, absolutely. It's been so fun to meet such interesting people through this group. But you have a really interesting story. And I'm going to start with something that I saw on there, and I was like, okay, I need to know more about this. So you've shared that you have survived death 4 times.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, a journey that must have profoundly impacted your life's purpose. Can you talk about that and talk about how this has shaped your mission to help others, especially women, find their purpose?
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to talk about it. It is not a dramatic statistic there. It's not like, oh, I'm just saying that happened or that I'm fudging those numbers. No. Time number 1 was my own birth. In 1963, on August 1st, I just turned 61. So
Congratulations.
thank you. On August 1st of 1963, my twin sister and I arrived 2 months early. My mom did not know she was having twins. So, kind of a surprise. And we didn't, we were early. They did not have good medical care back then for premature babies. Nothing really set up. And so, especially in a small, fairly rural hospital, my twin sister only made it 1 day. And then I spent the first 3 months of my life in an incubator in Peoria, Illinois, which was an hour and a half away from my parents. And so I knew from the start that I was special because my mom and dad had said, you came early, your sister didn't survive. And so I always knew that there was a purpose. I was raised in a Christian home. I always knew that that God had spared me. I mean, I should have died. I was 2 pounds and 13 ounces.
Wow.
I dropped to 2'8". And like I said, was it an incubator? And I have to say one really thing that has struck me in these last few years that I realized when babies are left in a crib or in an incubator and they're not tended to and loved, they die. And it's called failure to thrive. And it occurred to me, this always makes me kind of cry, that there were nurses in that hospital in Peoria that held me. My mom and dad came like midweek and then on the weekend to see me, but day in, day out, there were ladies, there were nurses who held me, and I don't know who they are. And it's really cool to think that because someone cared who didn't even know me, and held me and loved me, I thrived, I survived. So that's kind of something that touches me all the time. Absolutely. So anyway, I always knew that that I had a special beginning, and being God's child, I know that you asked me earlier, I can tell you right now. You said, what is some great advice that a woman in your life gave you? Well, it would be my mother. And she always told me, we're here for each other, that this journey is really not about you. It's about how you shine God's light and helping others and serving others. That's what we're here for. So I always knew that there was a purpose. So fast forward then, I just kind of lived with that in the back of my mind and always tried to live a good life and be kind and be helpful, etc. When I had our first baby, I was 30, almost 31 years old. And I ended up having what's called HELLP syndrome, HELLP. And it is a deadly pregnancy-related disease. So if you've heard of preeclampsia, then there's eclampsia, and then that advances, if it's not caught, into HELLP syndrome, which is deadly. So mine was undiagnosed. I was full term. And I learned in Lamaze class, if you get put in a helicopter and they try to send you to Rockford, which is, near where I live now, it's an hour. They said, if you get put in the helicopter, that's bad news. So long story short, after laboring, condition dive bombing, baby in fetal distress, the doctor said, we called Rockford, we're going to put you in the nurse said, the doctor is calling Rockford, we're putting you in the helicopter. It's a 15-minute ride door to door. Wow. 15 minutes. Then they came back in the room and they said, we're not putting you in the helicopter. We are taking the baby right now. So they threw my husband out of the laboring room, gonna take me to surgery. They put a cap on me. They're shaving me. They're throwing my robe open, getting ready for an emergency C-section. And I looked at the nurse and I said to her, am I gonna die? And she just looked at me and didn't answer.
Oh, wow.
I have goosebumps. Like, yeah. So without going through all the other details, I did find out later that Rockford said to my doctor, do not put her in the helicopter. She will die before she gets here.
She won't make it. Yeah.
And you better save somebody, the wife or the mom. So slit her open fast and get that baby out. Praise the Lord. Josie is healthy, happy. I mean, just like we both survived. We're both miracles. Josie's now 30 years old. Yeah. I was infertile after that. It just ravaged my body, and we didn't know that it had done that and caused the infertility. I had chronic pain from the time she was born, chronic abdominal pain. So we started trying to have a baby right away, and could not get, 10 months in after Josie was born, couldn't get pregnant. Long story short, when Josie was 2.5, my doctor said, I think I'm going to do a laparoscopy and just go in with some scopes and see if we can explain your chronic infertility, your chronic pain, and see what's going on. If I uncover something monumental, I'll wake you up. And if not, if I find a little thorn I can pluck, I'll do that, if it might explain what's been going on with you. It'll take a half hour to 45 minutes. 4.5 hours later, he woke me up. He had operated on me without my permission with scopes and punctured my bowel.
Oh
my gosh.
And said to my husband, we may have nicked her bowel, but we're going to send her home. If she gets a fever, bring her back. Well, I never made it home. I spent 16 days in the hospital. He let me sit for 5 days with a punctured bowel. The doctor let me. Now, most people die in 2 or 3 days with a punctured bowel. I sat for 5. That's not good.
Wow.
No.
Survive that one. Then, so that's time number 1, 2, and 3. The fourth time was after that experience, we went to a high-risk hospital, Northwestern in Chicago, downtown, which is 60 miles from where we live now, with a specialist. Ended up doing an in vitro fertilization. Ended up with twins. Planned C-section. I could be awake. My husband could be there. And lo and behold, postpartum, hour and a half plus later, after they'd sewn me back up, my blood pressure starts climbing. And that's part of this disease. And the HELLP syndrome had come back. And it's deadly. And my doctor said, I've never seen this happen like this. He said, well, he had been at Johns Hopkins and then was at Northwestern. And he said he was probably 75 years old and about to retire. And he said, in my career, I've seen this happen 3 times. You are the third. You cannot get pregnant again. You will not survive. And so that was time number 4. And by God's hand, it was a shit show in the moment. It was very scary. I had an out of body. I've actually had 2 out of bodies. The bowel puncture was the first out of body. This was the second out of body. It was very, very scary, and a cry out to Jesus. I said, please don't take me. Please don't take me. You know, I've got 3 kids now. So that ended with a happy ending. We have Annie and Lili, who are now 25. But that was time number 4. So I remember the last 3 times that I looked death in the face.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and not being dramatic. If you look at my medical records, they're going to show.
Oh, no,
it
I don't think you're being dramatic. I think this is
it's terrifying.
It's terrifying. And
It
the
was
fact that
terrifying.
you actually chose to have more children after you almost died, obviously, I think that you saw that as part of your purpose as well. I would imagine. I mean, to put yourself through that, I think that that's really amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that was all God too. You know, I did not have much support from family and friends, as you might imagine. They're like, why are you doing this? Like, you almost died the first time. Why are you even trying to have more babies?
Right.
And I wanted 4, but we ended up with 3, and they are the biggest blessings in my life. I can talk forever about my girls and raising them and just what fantastic people they are. And I had to bring them here. You know, I knew that part of my purpose was bringing those lovely ladies to this earth.
So in terms of what you do now, obviously hearing this story really shows that why you feel your purpose is helping other women. But tell us specifically what you're doing now.
Thank you. I am a life coach, a life transitions coach. As moms, we are in a constant state of transition because everyone's growing and changing, and family dynamics change, and kids grow up and kids need you less and less. And, you know, first you're raising them and then they don't need you so much. And so that is the, you know, part of the coaching that I do. And I speak to audiences as well about transitions and about how life changes. When Josie went off to college, the twins are 5 years younger. There's a big gap there because of everything we had gone through. You know, it was really hard to let her go, but you have to let your kids go. You have to let them grow up. And I kind of thought like, oh, I got plenty of time here. The twins are only, you know, in 8th grade at this point. We got lots of time. And then I felt the clock ticking. I just kept feeling, oh my gosh, like Josie sped through college. I couldn't believe how fast it was. And of course, you know, Simone, as a mom, like with each child that leaves the nest, a piece of your heart just goes. And it's what you want for them. You want them to grow up. You want them to stand on their own 2 feet and be responsible, productive, thriving adults. But it as a mom who's like so wanting children and wanted her kids, it's really hard to let them go. So then as the twins got bigger and bigger and older and their time was coming to leave the nest, I was panicking, big time panicking. Not in front of anybody, but in my own quiet times, I was filled with frustration and angst. I promoted their going away. I promoted their, you know, doing what they were supposed to be doing at this point in their life. And was a huge cheerleader for all of that because I did it too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your biggest fear?
My
You know,
biggest fear was what's coming next. Like, oh dear God in heaven, I didn't know I was going to be so empty inside because my mom did a really nice job of covering that up. You know, now she's
Mhm.
oh yeah, I felt that same way when you kids left, but she did such a great job of covering it up that it never really occurred to me that there might be this massive hole, 3 holes in my heart when they left. And as a singer, as a voice teacher, my husband and I were youth leaders. We'd been doing that in total, we did it 13 years. So, you know, we still had little more time after the twins left, but and I was a substitute school teacher. I had lots of things I was doing that I liked,
Mm-hmm.
but I found that as the kids left, those things didn't hold any water. They were good things to focus on. I loved doing them. You know, especially being a singer and a voice teacher, I was doing
Mm-hmm.
something that creatively fulfilled me. And it was fine when the kids were here as the extra thing when they didn't necessarily need me or to fill my extra time. But when those kids were gone, those things held no water. So I began to panic when the twins were probably sophomores in high school or so. I'm like, there's only 2 more years left. And what am I going to do? Began to panic when the twins were probably sophomores in high school or so. I'm like, there's only 2 more years left. And what am I going to do, God? And so I'm praying and praying and praying and present and smiling and cheerleading all the time. But in my quiet time, like filled with frustration.
Mm-hmm.
God, why aren't you giving me the answer? God had called me to youth leadership years prior in January of 2005. So I knew that I know God's voice. I know what it feels like to be called and given direction, but I wasn't feeling it. And I just kept praying and praying and it wasn't coming. And literally the twins were already freshmen in college. It was November of their freshman year in college, November 8th of 2017. God said to me, you need to be a life coach and a speaker. And I was like, what? And I argued with God quite a bit. Long story short, I followed that path and that's what I've been doing. I went back to graduate school and got a graduate certification in positive psychology. I went through 2 levels of life coach training so that I could be prepared for my clients. And that was the beginning of my journey. So I started coaching in January of 2020.
Wow.
so I love this because I think for a lot of women listening, you know, we always wonder. Well, I like to say that it's always okay to change your mind, right? To figure out
Mm-hmm.
what's
Mhm.
next.
Mhm.
And, you know, when I was growing up, you picked something and that's what you had to do the rest of your life. That's what you were supposed to do. I mean, that's surely what my parents did. But I still remember when I when I was in college, I thought my whole life I was going to be a doctor. Then I failed organic chemistry and I was like, well, I'm not going to be a doctor. And my dad's like, well, then you should be an accountant. Okay, that's what I did. I ended up becoming a CPA. There's nothing about it that I liked. For all you accountants out there, I appreciate you. It's just not something that I enjoyed. And really figuring out that in each, you know, part of our lives that it's okay to choose something else, or you find something that chooses you, especially in this case, you know, you found something that really chose you. I mean, Liv, you're on a completely different path than you thought you'd be on 2 years ago.
I mean, yeah.
So,
And I think it's like really important that we're able to change our minds and not be set in our ways. And I also think that like I'm kind of a good example of what you start off in college is not what you're going to end up doing post-college or even what your degree is in. I have nothing to do with law in my bachelor's.
yeah,
Love it.
and you never know where you're going to go later in life with it too, right? I mean, that's for me, I've done many things over my life, and what I love is what I'm doing now. Trust me, I loved raising my kids, and I can tell you, I mean, I still have 2 at home.
I was
but-
about to say, you're not an empty nester.
I know I have 2 at home still, but
That's awesome.
and I'm much more prepared now for when they go away because like when Jacob left, I don't know, Liv, if you remember, like I
know
literally
this
would lay in
story.
his room crying because like
Yeah.
laying in his bed, like, this is so sad. each time it got a little bit easier. And I think also because it's so much easier to stay connected now. I mean, the fact that I have a
Yes.
podcast with her, that's really helpful. But I think all of those things, that just understanding that when something happens, it doesn't mean you can't do anything else, right? I mean, and for me, I always told the kids that I'm going to be doing stuff while you're home so that when you leave, it's going to be easier on me. Because,
Yeah,
it is such a hard thing.
it is. And, another piece of good advice that my mom gave me that just sparked your conversation, sparked it for me, your words. She used to say to me, nothing is written in stone. Absolutely nothing. So if you begin something and it doesn't work, you can change it.
Mm-hmm.
And she also said regarding change, she said, if you like what's going on in your life right now, cherish that because it will change.
Yeah.
And if you don't like what's going on in your life right now, that's okay because it'll change too. Hang on, it'll change too.
Yeah. I love that.
Very wise lady. She's 91 and a half and just this redheaded.
Oh, that's so fun.
Oh, yeah. She's awesome. Yeah. Hello, Mama, when you listen to this.
Saying all kinds of
Just-
great things about you.
Is your mom like as positive of a person as you are? You like radiate positivity.
Oh, thank you, Olivia. That is so sweet, honey. Yeah, my mama wrote the book on positive psychology.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Literally, when I went into grad school and my first class was Intro to Positive Psychology, I cried at so many things I was reading about because it kept hitting my heart and my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is what my mother taught me. This is what I grew up with. I know this to be true. So yeah, thank you. She is so positive. And my daddy was positive too. He's both very positive people. Yeah. Thank you.
How do you maintain your positive mindset like throughout all your challenges in life?
Oh, thank you. My faith.
Okay.
I have a very deep faith. And it is not to say that I don't have moments, just like I said, when the kids were growing
yeah,
up,
of course.
leaving. Yeah, you have those moments of frustration. You have those moments like, why aren't you answering my prayers, God? But I know that God is always there. I am huge on gratitude. So even like, I remember after Josie was born, and it was hell. I mean, I was in intensive care. I didn't, for like days, I didn't come home for like 9 days. I didn't get to see her till she was 24 hours old. And they weren't bringing her into the ICU. I didn't even get to see her.
Wow.
And the nurses are like, this lady is not getting well. She needs to see her baby. So they snuck her in. They even though it was against the rules, they snuck her in. And after all this, and it was a long road to recovery and such. One of my friends said, if you could go back and give birth to Josie and have it be a completely different experience, would you change that? And very quickly I said, no. I said, no. I learned a lot. One of the things I learned that I'd love to share with you is compassion, that you don't, and there's a lot of talk about this now, but 30 years ago, maybe not as much. You don't know what someone else is going through. And I can remember when Josie was probably around 1, and we were sitting at Mother's Day with my folks at a restaurant, and there was a table of a bunch of people, and there was a man at the end who was quite disheveled and really not engaged and kind of slumped in his chair, like not really paying attention to the family and what was going on. And my dad said, look at that guy, he's with his family. He should be paying more attention or something. And he hasn't shaved. And my dad was born in 1928. Things are different, right? And so I said to my dad, Daddy, maybe that doctor was saving someone's life last night in the middle of the night, and he just rushed over here to be with his family. And I think had I not been through what I'd been through with a doctor at that moment in time, I thought he saved my life. Little did I know he put me in pretty serious jeopardy by not diagnosing that I had HELP syndrome with all of the classic symptoms of it. But at any rate, in that moment, I was like, hey, that guy might have been through something pretty serious, and that's why he looks like he does. So that was one of the many things I learned. So that's a form of gratitude. That's saying like what I went through was awful, yes, but you don't know what other people are going through, and what I went through will bring blessings. no matter what we go through, any kind of pain, any kind of trauma, any kind of trouble, there are always blessings. You can always find something good that comes out of it. Always, even if it's just one thing.
I say this all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
she
Olivia's
says it all
hearing-
the time, actually.
She's hearing my voice inside her head, because I always say that, we never know what anybody else is going through. We can never walk a day in their shoes. I mean, never. It doesn't matter. You can say, oh, if you walked a day in their shoes, it's never going to be the same situation. So, lead with compassion, lead with empathy, and if you really are that curious, then ask how you can help. See how you can help someone instead of just judging and making assumptions, because I think that is a big problem in our society, is that we don't approach it that way. We think the worst, and I'd rather it be the opposite way.
Yeah. Sometimes if I'm in a store and someone's stinky to me, like someone who's checking me out, I will just like take a breath and say a prayer instead of like, you might want to snap back, but I'm not a snappy person. I don't really get very curt with people, but I always just sort of kind of say a little prayer, and I say to them, I'm so sorry. It looks like you're having a really bad day. Is there something that I can pray for you about? And I just always try to like be kind, and it kind of disarms them a little bit, And
yeah, people are so used to getting negative stuff. So I don't do the prayer thing when that happens, but what I do always is give them some sort of compliment. Like, I can tell that they're having a really crappy moment, and I'll be like, whether it's, oh my gosh, your hair's so pretty, or I love your outfit, or I love your nails. And I'm picking something that I'm sincerely, complimenting them, not just pulling it out of my butt, but like literally thinking that, you know what, I really do like this. Maybe this would make them feel a little bit better, because maybe the person they just checked out before me was really rude to them. So
totally. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's so important. So
Yeah.
if we're talking about positive mindset, because obviously you definitely are a very positive person, which I absolutely love. What are some practical tips that would help other women kind of think about this more and think about how you can go through your life being positive? I mean, trust me, we all have down days, we have down moments, but what are some tips that you would give to women who are kind of struggling with this?
I think that's a good question. Thank you. And Olivia, thank you for your question. I hope that I answered that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maintaining positivity. I would say faith and gratitude, would be the two tops. So for someone who's trying to cultivate gratitude in their life, number one, we have to have an awareness of where our head is. So it's easy to get sucked into negativity. If we can become aware of what's going on in our subconscious mind, and then when it clicks into the conscious mind, once we become aware of it, we can change our focus, which is sometimes hard to do. But you can train yourself, and I trained myself. Here's a personal example. I can be having a splendid day, and I'm on my patio, drinking my coffee, doing my devotions, and then a notification will come up, or the timer goes off on my phone, like, time to get doing something else. And I look, and then I get sucked into social media. And then I think, and then I play the comparison game. So I can feel myself like swirling down. And a couple of years ago, I realized that is not productive and not a good thing at all. You need to stop being so self-critical. So there's a stop sign outside of my house. We live on a corner, and I can see the stop sign from a couple places in my house. And I thought, all right, the next time I catch myself being rude to myself, which I would never talk to anyone else or say the things to them that I say to myself. I would yell, stop, just stop, like stop those thoughts. And so for a couple of days I walked around yelling stop, and my animals would be like, what, mom is like making she's not usually this loud. And I would yell stop. Well, then after a point, I didn't have to yell it anymore. I could just think it. As soon as I thought, I would feel those thoughts of mine start to go south, like they're in your subconscious mind. And then all of a sudden you realize what you're doing. So I broke that habit simply by saying, stop. And I can now be out in a restaurant. I can be anywhere, and I can just catch it. I catch it really fast. And then I just go, stop. And then the second part of that is, so that's the awareness. The second part is changing your focus. And I made a rule to myself that if I'm thinking, you're a cruddy housekeeper. Your house isn't very clean. Just pretend, because my house is very clean. Let's just say that. Okay. So then my change direction doesn't have to be, but you are the best toilet cleaner of anybody I know. It doesn't have to go with it. Okay. So it can just be, you're not a very good house cleaner. And then on the other side, I go, but you were really nice to that lady in the store yesterday. So it doesn't have to go together. So to anybody who's going to try this, if you want to try, first comes awareness and you can stop those thoughts, then just switch your focus. Just switch it. It doesn't have to correlate to the subject matter. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I think about that. There are certain things that I know that I'm not good at, nor do I choose to be good at them, right? Like they're okay, yeah, I would say cleaning toilets is not my specialty, right? Although I try to think, Olivia's laughing.
It's not like that hard to do.
I know, but you just have to do it, right? So,
There's other things that we'd rather be doing.
yeah.
Yes.
And so instead of putting myself down, yeah, I do. I mean, my way of doing it is Control Alt Delete, that we need to control our
Yes.
negative thoughts and
I heard you talking about that. Yes.
yeah, and reframe. And because we can get overwhelmed with this, right? We can, if we're thinking
Oh, yeah.
all day long of the negative things that could happen or the things that we don't think we're good enough at, that can be all consuming.
I had such a big moment of this today. I actually called my older sister on the ride home and we spoke for like 20 minutes because the entire day today at school, I was just playing this comparison game of like, I'm not doing enough. These people are doing more than me. Do I need to be doing this? Am I involved in this organization? Oh, why are my readings only taking like, what am I not putting enough effort into school? And I literally I called my older sister for like 20 minutes and she was like, we just talked about it and realizing like effort A looks different for every person. Success looks different for every person, but B, like I'm doing enough for myself.
That's wonderful. And so there you switched, you were aware, you switched your focus. And so then you asked about gratitude. So then now, when we switch that focus then and we can get out of the muck and out of the mire of the negativity, then we can begin to look for gratitude. I think it's really hard when we're stuck in negative energy spaces to find gratitude. And it is up to us to figure out how to get out of those spaces. I do a whole talk on energy, like how your energy affects yourself and your business and other people. And the good and the bad of it is this: we are the only people who can affect change in our life. That's the good and the bad of it. The good of it is that we can. The bad of it is that it's up to us. So those things I say come first: awareness, change of focus, and then you can begin to find the gratitude. And it might just be one thing. It might be only one thing, but then you can grow that. From there, you can find other things.
And I think every day when we get up, we have a choice, right? We can choose to be miserable. We can choose to be happy. And there are obviously outside forces. There are things that happen in our lives, but we still can choose gratitude. And it's interesting because as I've gotten older, I've become really particular on who I want to surround myself with. Right? It's not that I don't want to be friends with everybody. Of course. I mean, you can learn something from everyone you meet, but I've really made the conscious decision that I want to be surrounded by people with positivity. Again, you have a bad day, I'm here to pick you up. I have a bad day, you're here to pick me up. But in general, to have people around you that kind of make you feel good instead of you're walking on eggshells all the time, because, in previous parts of my life, I had situations like that. And you were like, I don't want to do that anymore. And for people who are younger who are listening, you don't have to do that, right? You can choose to be surrounded by people that make you happy, people that make you feel good, and people that are there to support you.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And something my dad used to say is if you don't want to be around a person, you don't have to be rude about it, but just not be, you don't have to be available, Yeah.
Yeah, I was at, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was at this women's event not too long ago, and there was the way this woman said it just cracked me up because she said, so when you're on a bus and you see people waiting at the bus stop and you know that they're really negative people, don't stop the bus. Just keep going. You don't have to say anything. You just keep going. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Don't
Yeah.
stop the bus.
Yeah, don't stop the bus. That is
Yeah.
so true. Yeah, I love that. And I love, Simone, that you pointed that out, that we have a choice and we don't have to be around people who are negative. We don't.
Because it sucks you in, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when you're surrounded by negative people, you even see people who are negative and they suck these people in and they start saying mean stuff too. And you're like, but that's not that person's personality. Like, how is this even happening?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So true. Yeah.
And then, I mean, obviously in different parts of our lives, I mean, it's different for you, Liv, than it is for me. I mean, I'm a homebody. Well, you're a homebody too. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a
I
homebody.
spend all my time here.
Well, other than being in class. But
No,
that's
that's the thing. Everyone is always like, "Oh, you're gonna study in the library after school." I'm like, "No, like I don't work well
you don't
around
play
other
well with
people."
others.
Well, I just talk. No, I play too well. I just won't
Oh,
stop talking. That's my
You get
problem.
distracted.
You know, like, so our my older brother's dog is they describe him the same way that he is. It's not that he's aggressive towards other dogs. He's too friendly to other dogs,
yeah, he
Yeah.
and
can't
that's my
stop. He doesn't
issue.
know what to do.
Yeah, I just can't stop talking, and when I'm in a study situation, so I just try not to do it in the library.
I love it. I love it. See, that's so good. You're very wise, Olivia.
I try.
Yeah,
I just
no,
try to be self-aware.
when I've been listening to your podcast, I can hear you're very wise.
Aw, that's so sweet.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. I was surprised at first to hear how young you are because you sound, what you say and how you speak. I thought you were a bit older than you are. So good for you.
I've gotten that quite frequently all throughout my life, I would say. And even as like most recently in law school, a lot of my friends are like 25 to 27, and I'm a baby, 21, and they're like, we just like don't even see it.
Love it.
But like I see it with other 21-year-olds. It's weird. It's a weird little thing.
Mhm.
But like, yeah.
Well, it's all
I
about
think
building
because
that confidence.
It
Well,
is.
yeah. I've
Yep.
always been good at speaking to adults, and I think that really developed how I think in general because I liked having real conversations with adults. And I think in like some ways that really matured me.
Yeah. And I can tell a lot of it comes from your mom too. Simone, I can just tell
Yeah.
the kind of mom you are and how you've raised your children and taught them to have conversation with adults, to be able to do that. That's great.
I think it's such an important thing. And especially now where everything, I mean, my kids will say to me now, you're a screenager because like they'll be trying to talk to me and I'm like doing something on my phone. I'm like, oh, come on. But they're right. Like if I'm not paying attention, I'm on my screen. But really having those skills where you can have a personal conversation, because a lot of kids can't do that anymore.
Oh, I know.
Right? I mean,
know.
and COVID made it worse, but still,
Well, I know. It's insane.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure you're seeing it in law school, right? I mean,
Yeah. My friend and I were actually, this is no hate to anybody in my class. Like everyone obviously has a right to be there. They wouldn't have let you in otherwise. It's not an easy process. But my friend and I were talking about it yesterday, and she was just saying that she expected a higher level of maturity from a lot of our kids, especially in the social aspects of being there and just like, I don't know, being able to socialize in large groups and just being able to like have adult conversations in the way of just like not inappropriate like conversation topics for a school setting. And just like the clickiness of behavior. So we were just talking about how we kind of expected it to be a lot older, but like I think COVID really stunted a bit of my years and like my age range's social abilities.
100%.
for sure.
Yep.
I mean, you were 20. I mean, you lost your senior year because of it. And so
Yeah.
we were lucky though, because with having such a big family, right? So when everybody came home, because everybody had to come home, so all 6 kids were home. So they still had constant conversations, right? I mean, I think about the people that were completely isolated during that time and how
Or like an only
devastating that would be.
child.
Yeah. I mean,
More like the lonely child.
the lonely child. That's what Millie used to say when the older kids would go out of town. She would call herself the lonely child because she was the only
Aw.
one home.
That's so cute.
Yeah. So talking about confidence, what does confidence mean to you? Everybody has a different answer. I think what I'm going to do actually is for every podcast guest, I'm going to start keeping a spreadsheet and really look back at what everybody has said about it, because it's so interesting to hear different perspectives on confidence.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I would say that when we have confidence, we have a feeling of I can
Mm.
and I am. I am worthy. I am lovable. I am loving. I am capable. And it doesn't mean that we have it all the time and in every situation. You had asked me about this prior to our talking, and I was thinking about it. I think it can come from the home. I think importantly, as a parent, we want to instill confidence in our kids.
Mm.
I have people I know who have never heard the words I love you from their parents, who were not encouraged to go and try things and celebrated for doing things, but the opposite. So I think as parents, we have a huge job to help our kids be confident. And all at the same time, you might have had parents who championed you, but you might not always feel that confidence. Like I had fantastic parents, and, they always made me feel like I was capable and I could do anything I put my mind to. But there are admittedly lots of times when I feel less than confident, or I feel less than. And that's my own struggle and my own battle. And I think Satan has a lot to do with that, because when we're doing good things, Satan he wants to stop that. When we're living in the light, he wants us in the darkness, and we cannot dwell in both places at the same time. So we have to recognize that force as well. But I think that if you struggle with confidence, I would suggest starting with something small that you think you might be able to do, and do it, and then be really proud of yourself. Let's say you didn't have a parental, you didn't have parents who brought you up that way, or siblings who helped you feel good about yourself. So if you find yourself in a place where feeling like you really, have no confidence, start with anything that you can do and build on that, and then try something a little bigger. It might be a little scarier, but try something a little bigger and then achieve there. And as well, I think school helps us when we do well in school. That helps us feel like we can go to the next level. But there are also kids who struggled in school, who didn't have that as their maybe a base of confidence. So you have to find it in any place that you can. And we all have gifts. God equipped every one of us with gifts and ways to show what we can do.
I think that the big thing behind what you were saying about doing something little and then maybe something bigger, it's really what builds confidence is the trying. It's about getting out there and doing it, because as soon as you tell yourself you're not capable of something, that whole level of self-doubt just kind of crushes everything, right? But as soon as you can put yourself out there and say, I'm going to try this. And that really is I believe one of the first steps.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of it also comes from work. If when you're young, get a job, go do a job and do it well. And that, we like you say, when we do, and then we know that we can, then it builds and builds and builds. And to not buy into that I can't dialogue.
Not to buy into I can't and I'm just. Those are the two things that I used to say. In our house, we would say can't means won't, which means you won't even try. And, when I used to talk about myself when I was younger and I was really riddled with self-doubt, the way I would describe myself was like, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just Rob's wife. I'm just justifying who I am. And I'm not just anyone. Nobody out there is. We are. Like, we need to be proud of who we are. And what you said before of I am loving, I am kind, I am patient, anything you want to use. And Olivia loves when I get on my bandwagon about positive affirmations, but I think it really, really helps. And if we can tell ourselves all day long that we're not good enough and believe that, then we can absolutely turn the table and believe when we tell ourselves that we are more than enough.
Oh, I love that. And when you say what you used to say in your house, if I can't do this or that. Our daughter Lili, I need to shout out their names, Annie and Lili. I've been telling you Josie's name. The twins are Annie and Lili. When I say I can't do something, Lili will say, well, not with that attitude, you can't.
That's perfect.
Right.
I love when our kids give us advice, right? I love when our kids say, and actually now as my kids get older, I'll write something and I'll send it off to them and say, tell me what you think. Give me some feedback. It's so funny that I was the teacher for so long and now I like to be taught. Like I want them to kind of give me advice on stuff, which is so fun when it comes full circle like that.
Isn't it? That's so great. So to all you moms who are out there thinking about the empty nest and, even if your kids are really little and at some point it'll come, listen to what Simone said about her wonderful children and wanting their advice. And, there's such great days coming, mamas, when those kids get big and you get to enjoy them as beautiful adults.
Absolutely. So Liv, you have your calendar on you. So we always like to end with our little calendar and, so read away. Does it connect?
If fear is to be alive. Oh, wait. Whoa. Sorry. I've been doing a lot of reading today and that was just completely wrong. To fear is to be alive. It's your job to understand that and to push past it.
Yeah. I think it totally connects because, right? And especially if we're talking about confidence, it's the fear is what holds us back, right? Everybody has fears, but when we make those fears reality is when we get stuck. So when we can understand that everybody's afraid of something. I mean, Olivia's afraid of gorillas. Hello. When we let that hold us back, then that's where we get stuck. But understanding that it's okay to be afraid of things and we still have to push through the fear. And that's where we build our confidence.
I agree. I love that.
So tell everybody where they can find you.
They can find me on Facebook at Leigh Leigh Kossman, Speaking and Coaching. And Lili is spelled Leigh-Leigh. Kossman is Kossman.
I just have to say, I absolutely love your name.
Oh,
I know.
Thank you.
I know.
Thank you.
Don't you feel like it really goes with her personality?
Yes,
too, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Well, the birth certificate says Lee, but my mom has always called me Lili. My husband calls me Lili. Tons of my friends call me Lili. So when I started my life as a life coach and this part of my career in my life, I thought I'm just going to go with Lili because so many people call me that. So thank you. That's so sweet. So Leigh Leigh Kossman, Speaking and Coaching on Facebook, and on Instagram, it's Leigh_Kossman without the hyphen. And on LinkedIn, Leigh Leigh Kossman, Speaking and Coaching.
And we will have everything in the show notes. So everybody can find you and reach out to you for coaching. So if you're listening to this podcast and you like what you're hearing, please leave a review, share it with your friends because we love doing what we're doing right now and want to remind everyone that you are unshakable. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Her Unshakable Confidence with Simone and Olivia Knego. We hope this episode has made your day just a little bit brighter and given you the inspiration you need to confidently go about your week. Always remember to be authentically you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And feel free to connect with them on Instagram at Simone Knego and at Olivia Knego. Till next time.